A very good evening, friends. Today we have met here for a very unique series that we are starting, which is Learning from the Legends. But before we start off, may I request everyone to place their hands on their heart for the ICAI motto song?
य एष सुप्तेषु जाग्रति य एष सुप्तेषु जाग्रति कामं 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 कामपुरुषो पुरुषो निर्विमाणः निर्विमाणः तदेव शुक्रं तद्ब्रह्मा तदेवामृतमुच्यते तस्मिन् लोकः शतः सर्वे तदूनात्यपि कश्चन एतद्द्वैता 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 एतद्द्वैता.
So, friends, today is a very unique series that we are starting under the leadership of Manish Gadia, our chairman, who has always wanted this series to start. And this is a wonderful thing for all of us. It's for the benefit of all of us to learn from the legends of our profession. So, as we know, our profession has had many luminaries, and this is where we will be able to hear from them their life story, their struggle, their rise in their careers, their ethos, stories which we don't know till now, which will be all know all through this series, through the probing interviews of which will be taken by our past chairman CA Sunil Goyal ji, who has always been a great support, to our profession. And in the first session that we have today, we have our you know, a very tall figure with us who will be interviewed, CA Bansi Mehta. Everybody knows about him, about his life, about his ethos, and about so many things about him. And maybe you will be able to learn something more through this interview. So, without wasting more time, I would request the interview to be aired, and I wish you all very happy watching.
Dear professional colleague, this year WIC is following a theme bold, where B stand for brace the change, O stand for organize, L stand for learning, and D stand for delivery. So
So
the
I guess
only
till the
thing which
time
is
we,
constant in our life
I
is
think the
change.
technical glitches are
So every
sorted, I can
person
just
need to
talk about, many more sessions that we will follow this up with, and we'll have many luminaries from different walks of, careers. So it need not be
every
just a
person
practicing
need
chartered
to
accountant.
change
We'll have
the
people who
way
are,
they were
we
doing
know
the
people
things
from
in the
capital
past.
market who have done wonders, and
Once you
their
are ready to adapt the
names
change,
are
the next
followed
thing is
everywhere.
to
So we
organize
would have the
yourself,
privilege
your
of even
office, your skill
looking
set,
at the
etc.,
interviews of
and then
the
to learn.
luminaries from every walk,
And the
and
best way,
it will be a great learning for all of us to see as to how did they take off, what was the tipping point, and we need to know, if we can learn from those interviews, maybe we'll get to somewhere where they reached. If they have reached 100%, at least we'll reach at least 25%, is how I would view this series.
way to learn is the learn from the life experience of the legend. Keeping this in mind, WIRC is starting a series that is can learn from a person
May I
his
request the
life
technical team
experience
to please
who is
start the interview?
who is a role model for many people, who has followed a high ethical standard in his life, who has taught many professionals. So, in nutshell, you can say the person who is a legend. So, the first in a series we are going to start, and the host for this series will be CA Sunil Goyal, the past chairman of WIRC, and the first legend who is going to show us the path will be none other than CA Bansidhar S. Mehta.
Hello everyone, welcome to the talk show series brought to you by WRC of ICAI, Learning from the Legend.
So till the
I am
time we
Sunil
start off,
Goyal,
may I just
your
update you on
host,
some of the
and we have
initiatives that
very
we have
first guest
taken at
Sri
WRC
Bansidhar
platform.
Sundarlal
So one is that
Mehta,
we have started
popularly
this
known as
charitable
Sri
entities
Bansi Bhai.
re-registration help desk.
Sri Bansi Bhai
I would
has served our
request all the
institute
members
as the
to
president
put up their
exactly 4
queries on
decades
that
ago,
help desk
and we all
in
know
case
him
if they
for
have
his
any other queries other than
annual budget
10A
speech
form not
and
being
the
available.
unparalleled contribution he has
The
made to the
second thing is that
profession
in case if you have
and the
any issues,
institute.
further issues after
An
the
ocean of
portal
knowledge,
starts
a true
functioning,
statesman,
even
and a
then
great
if
human
there
being,
would be
Sri
some
Bansi Bhai has a
small issues,
lot
some
to learn
glitches because
from.
it's a new
And
thing, so
in
there'll be
today's
teething issues.
session,
So
we will
please,
endeavor to
you can
unfold many chapters
send us all
to
your
learn from him,
issues, and we can
and
collect them and we
and
can send
what
it
it
to
takes
the
to
at the
be
right
like
platform. We can
Bansi Bhai Mehta.
put it up so that it
Welcome,
can
Bansi
help
Bhai.
us
And
solve
may I
the
request
problems
Chairman of
which are
WIRC
there, technical
of
problems on
ICAI,
the
Sri Manish
portal, and
Gadia.
we are here to, we
Please
are a
request,
bridge between
please
the
present the
authorities
memento to
and
you.
the members. So
We
please
need to
use the
get a
platform of
no
WRC or even
as
ICAI
politeness,
for
but
putting up all your
it's not very convenient.
issues on the portal. So
Thank
that's
you,
the
sir.
other thing.
Thank you very
We
much.
have also indexed all our
Asibai, how
programs
were
which
your
were conducted
initial
on this
school
virtual
days and the
platform,
challenges you faced? I
and
believe you were in
they are
third
all
high school.
so they are all
I
available
was in
very
Dada school,
readily. So you can go
and
into the
that was
subject of your
perhaps the
interest
oldest
and you'll be
school
able
in
to click
Mumbai.
on it and you'll be able to view the program from last more than a year. We have been having program on virtual platform. So they are all available. We have also started this initiative TEL, which is train, earn, and learn. This is to address the issue of shortage of article trainees and shortage of resources that we face in the offices. So in this program, the undergrads from various commerce colleges will be will join the CA offices. So they will first be given 36 hours of training, which will be conducted by the institute only, and then they can join as trainees and work as trainees with CA offices. and then if they are interested in the profession and they decide that they'll go ahead with this, it'll be a great opportunity for them to get inducted into the office. So please make use of this. The link is available on WRC platform. Uh, And we have also started study groups on
हेलो
valuation,
दृष्टि
direct tax. हाँ जी, मिश्रा जी अभी चालू हो गया है.
मैम आप 2 मिनट रुकिए ना मैम चालू करो.
So we request you to visit the portal WRC website and take advantage of all the initiatives that we have started. And I'm sure it will be of great use to everyone.
Dear professional colleague, this year WISC is following a theme bold, where B stand for brace the change, O stand for organize, L stand for learning, and D stand for delivery. So the only thing which is constant in our life is change. So every person need to change the way they were doing the things in the past. Once you are ready to adopt the change, the next thing is to organize yourself, your office, your skill set, etc., and then to learn. And the best way to learn is the learn from the life experience of the legend. Keeping this in mind, WIRC is starting a series that is learning from the legend, where you can learn from a person, his life experience, who is a role model for many people, who has followed a high ethical standard in his life, who has taught many professionals. So in nutshell, you can say the person who is a legend. So the first in a series we are going to start, and the host for this series will be CA Sunil Goyal, the past chairman of WIRC, and the first legend who is going to show us the path will be none other than CA Bansidhar S. Mehta.
Hello everyone, welcome to the talk show series brought to you by WRC of ICAI, Learning from the Legend. I am Sunil Goyal, your host, and we have very first guest Sri Bansidhar Sundarlal Mehta, popularly known as Sri Bansi Bhai. Sri Bansi Bhai has served our institute as the president exactly 4 decades ago, and we all know him for his annual budget speech and the unparalleled contribution he has made to the profession and the institute. An ocean of knowledge, a true statesman, and a great human being, Sri Bansi Bhai has a lot to learn from. And in today's session, we will endeavor to unfold many chapters to learn from him and what it takes to be like Bansi Bhai Mehta. Welcome, Bansi Bhai. And may I request Chairman of WIRC of ICAI, Sri Manish Gadia, please present a memento to him.
You want to get up?
No.
That's politeness, but it's not very convenient.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Bansi Bhai, how were your initial school days and the challenges you faced? I believe you were in Bhardai school.
I was in Brada school, and that was perhaps the oldest school in Mumbai at that time. In fact, I attended the centenary celebration of Brada school a couple of years back. The school was a cosmopolitan school, started by a Parsi, but over a period of time it became a conglomeration of various Muslims, Bohris, Christians, Catholics, Gujaratis, Hindus, and it gave me a certain build-up in life by which I became an incorrigible secularist.
Oh, that's fine.
I couldn't change my views in all these years because in the school we used to have all kinds of religions, and then we'll have meal together sometimes, and somebody is eating something which I would never touch. So the schooling was very important in my build-up.
So, what are your good memories those days which you are still
Of the
carrying?
school days.
Yes.
The school days, I remember that my first year in the school, when I shifted to Bhadda school in 47. So that is the year in which India became independent.
Wow. Oh, that's good.
So we had a function, and at that function, from each class, they had selected a person to read Pandit Nehru's speech on accepting the independence and the day appointed by destiny. It's such a famous speech, and we had all to recite that speech in 5-7 minutes. And that gave me the kind of experience, or if you like, confidence of public speaking.
Oh, that's good. I understand that you also wrote an essay on if you were the Education Minister of India, and I think that gave you
Yeah,
some more insight.
you see, what had happened was that there was a contest organized by Balkanji Bari, All India. Balkanji Bari was an All India organization for children.
Okay.
So they had organized the contest if I was the Education Minister of India. So my teacher asked me that I should write the essay. So I told her that I'll write in Gujarati because I am a Gujarati by birth and Gujarati by culture and Gujarati by upbringing, and not that I can't speak or write English, but I prefer writing in Gujarati. And she
But your
said it's
school was
fine.
a cosmopolitan.
She said it's fine. And then, as luck would have it, in the All India contest, this was awarded the best essay, whole of India. And that prize was awarded to me by Pandit Nehru.
Wow, that's incredible. That's good. Contrary to belief that you are a scholar in education and academics, but then I believe you had some other interests, other hobbies also during your
Music.
and and also I think cricket you had a lot of.
I used to write short stories
Uh-huh.
in Gujarati. And I used to write poems in Gujarati. And I was very fond of reading Gujarati. And in fact, my education in the school was entirely in my mother tongue.
Wow.
Although there were two divisions offering English medium, my father opted for Gujarati medium. So, and in any case, that was my love.
You would play cricket with your friends.
I did. In fact, fortunately, I was saved from my obsession with cricket because the first day I went for the practice, and I was an off-break bowler. So the coach said that, where did you learn this? I said, no, I have not learned anything. So he said, I'll recommend that you be included in the school team. Then my father put his foot down. He said, you have gone there for studies, not for cricket.
But cricket, despite your very short height, you were selected in the team.
No, I didn't go for further
Okay, you did not.
because my father put his foot down and said that, look, you will be wasting your time. So I didn't pursue cricket.
So, who had influence on you during your
My father.
childhood?
My father, at all times.
Oh, very good. Good. And you had many friends also, I believe, during your school days. So,
Yeah, in the school, then in the college, and then after doing my articles, and I had a very large circle of friends because I was a very friendly person. I am not so friendly
But you
now.
were a scholar right from school days. You were a scholar in your so
Yes,
school also you
I
taught?
mean, I hope I don't sound bragging, but I have always stood first.
Wow, that's incredible.
In the school days, I have stood first in all the 4 divisions of the class, in all the 4 years that I was in the school, Vada school.
That's
And I stood first in the college.
that's right.
I stood first in the institute. So somehow or the other, it happened.
That's right. So what made you to choose this CA profession?
Yeah, that is a very curious explanation. My father was to retire from government service.
I see.
He was goading me to become an IAS.
Wow.
So
So those days
I,
IS was at
I was
the
the ultimate
ultimate
performance.
okay, career choice. Yeah.
So, but I was underage for IAS. So after doing my BCom, he said it's going to be another 2 years you have to wait before you become eligible for the IAS exam.
I see.
So why don't you do something? So I said, let me do law. Then somebody suggested that instead of law, why don't you do CA? So I used to joke in my early days that ACA after my name is Accidental Chartered Accountant.
That's right. Bansi bhai, you pursued your articleship GP Kapadia and Company.
Yes.
So how was your experience those days? And
Divine,
wow, that's beautiful. What
divine.
wow.
Because first of all, the kind of work, the variety, the professionalism at work I saw happening in GP Kapadia and Company. No compromises.
So did you have chance to meet Mr. JP Kapadia time and again?
Many times,
Oh, that's
many times, because it was usually not so. But to give you one example, for example, I stood for intermediate soon after my articles began in August 55. So my result came and I had only 3 days leave. So I was not very sanguine that I'll get some good rank. But as it happened, I stood first.
Oh, that's right.
So he called me inside his cabin, which is unusual for GP Kapadia. He was a very stately person. Then he said that you have won silver medal, which is named after me. It is known as GP Kapadia silver medal. And now you have to get GP Kapadia gold medal
Oh,
also.
that's right.
So,
Which you did next year.
huh?
Which you did in the final.
Which I did in fact,
Oh,
yes.
that's right. That's wonderful.
But that, I mean, it was more words of encouragement rather than admonition.
So what you are saying, Musibhai, that articleship should be taken very seriously, and this is a very important.
Yes, I think one is the intention and the other is the reality. Now, intention should be that articles should be thoroughly used for getting the training which is required for somebody to start his practice or take an industrial employment.
job, yeah.
But by and large, it was found that people did not have the kind of variety of practice. Now, we had this great fortune in GP Kapadia and Company that because he was a very innovative person, we had lots of completely original work, investigations. One case in which I won't mention the name, but one case in which in those days an addition of 20 lakhs rupees was made, and there was matter in appeal. That matter was entrusted to our firm, although we were not the original chartered accountant. And we had to prove that the goods which you are including as belonging to me are not my goods. They were just deposited with me for some purpose. So we had to do the entire sequencing of receipt, payment, and come to the conclusion, and we won at the first appellate stage.
Oh,
And I still remember the AAC, as he was then known, later became chairman of CBDT.
So what you are saying that articleship time is very, very important, and the
It
students
is
should
very
take it very
important,
seriously, as
very
well as
important.
the principal
And
should.
I think this is where I was fortunate that my father and J.P. Kapadia had studied together in the school.
Oh, they
So
are
that
friends.
was the
So he was a little extra strict with you.
no, the point is otherwise he was very fussy
Ah,
but taking someone in articles.
that's right. So Bansi bhai, you have been a very scholar right from your school days, and also in CA inter and final you topped. So what did you do differently than many of us?
Sorry.
You were a topper in CA inter and final. So what differently you did compared to many of us?
I probably I will be saying this with some uh, guilt, but I had a photographic memory,
Wow.
so I didn't have to work as hard as others. I'll
Wow.
give you an example. When I was in primary school, junior school, not Barda school, and there was a teacher who complained that I had copied during my examination. So my father said, "My son doesn't copy; he's on his own."
Wow.
So then the headmaster called my father because there was a complaint by the teacher that I had written exactly the same sentence as it is there in the textbook.
Wow. That's incredible.
So my father laughed and told the principal headmaster that you give him today's Mumbai Samachar. Let him read whatever page you want him to read, a paragraph, etc., and then give him a pencil and paper and ask him to write down what he read. And I
Wow.
could write
The same thing.
exactly.
Exactly the same.
So
Wow.
my memory was something which God has endowed me with,
And
and
also your interpretation abilities, I think
no,
that.
that came by experience.
Oh, right.
Because in GP Kapadia and Company we did a lot of a very high level of tax work.
Wow.
It was not ordinary appeal about a disallowance of expenses or anything. And every time there was a major appeal, then Mr. GP Kapadia will call me and say, "Hey, you handle this."
Oh, that's right.
Although I was an article clerk only.
Oh, that's incredible. But bhai, after passing CA, you decided to get into practice, not the job. So, any particular reason for that?
Yeah, I mean it's an accident. I joke about this by saying that the word ACA after my name is accidental chartered accountant. Because first of all, I was our family, my father and I, wanted me to be IAS.
Right.
So the reason why I went into articles was that I was underage for IAS. So I was underage by 2 years. Then my father decided that this is only 3 years article. So 1 year later you appear for IAS. So I came through an accident and I didn't want to be a CA. I wanted to be a government servant, a privileged government servant. So I wanted to be an IAS. But because I was underage, uh, I couldn't do it immediately.
Right.
So ultimately, when my articles were still ongoing, and I had to file the form for IAS, but it required under our regulations the permission of the employer.
Ah, that's right.
So it was sent to him by his PA,
To Mr. JP Kapadia.
his PA.
Okay.
He was furious. And then he called my father. My father was a government servant. So he telephoned him and asked him to come immediately. And he fired my father. He said that if you did not have faith in my profession, why did you occupy one seat in my office? He was furious. So my father said that this is the reason. So he said, then don't appear for IAS. You have confidence in. So we said, all right, we'll take the exam after my articles are over. So that we didn't want to annoy him. But I never looked back.
So you got into practice straight away, and those days also the struggle was there to set up the practice, or you had a
Yeah,
easy work?
to some extent, I got referrals from GP Kapadia and Company.
That's very good.
some special work or a special work, he will say, go and get his. In the beginning, he supported me only in terms of doing some work for GP Kapadia and Company.
But I understand you set up your office with the prize money which you got.
Yeah. See, because my father was a government servant, and my father was a God-fearing, honest person. So I couldn't afford the kind of money which is required. So I got 2 prizes in my final CA, both prizes at the regional level, and that came to 400 rupees, 200 each, 2 prizes, taxation. So 400 rupees were enough for me to buy a chair, a table.
And anyway, computers were not there those days.
The computer was not there.
Right. And a fan.
No, my uncle's office was there.
Okay, so you had that. Yeah, that's right. So in olden days, in fort area, table space with one fan and one common peon used to be the way of beginning of the practice. I remember.
Yeah, no, it was a ground floor office.
Okay.
The ground floor of Reserve Bank of India's next building is Amar Building. So Amar Building was the building, now belongs to Reserve Bank. Amar Building was the building where on the ground floor my uncle had a distributorship office. So I was sitting on a table in the office, and my first partner joined me 6 months later.
Okay.
And he and I, we grew together.
Oh, that's brilliant. Bansi bhai, you were in teaching profession also. Is that by choice or by compulsion to earn something for?
Sorry?
You were in teaching profession also.
Yeah.
You were a teacher.
Yeah, you see, it is like this, that I was told by my professor in the college when I was a student that the rule that only practicing CAs teach in the college is a rule to which he had given a lot of support. So he said, you must teach.
Oh, that's good. So
now, actually, it was teaching only. Actually, the salary was 200 rupees per month. So every time there was a war, in those days there were 2-3 wars. So every time there was a war, there used to be a law passed by Indira Gandhi's government that you surrender your salary to the National Defense Relief Fund.
Oh.
Then you don't pay tax on it. And since I was paying super tax also at that time.
Oh.
65, 62.
Oh, that's brilliant. But you could set up your practice in early days, and you were doing very well. And this teaching profession helped you?
If you compare other beginners, I was doing well. And partly it is because I got a lot of referral work from my old firm, GP Kapadia and Company.
So this teaching profession also helped you in your practice? Your teaching?
GP Kapadia.
You were a teacher, so this your teaching?
Yeah, no. Actually, it is more a pleasure. It was a pleasure, and so I did that for 30 years.
So, Bansi bhai, you were a young professional those days in mid 60s or so. So, who had influence on you those days? Who influenced you those days? Your client or your
student
or
when I was teaching there.
No, in your practice time.
Practice time.
Who influenced you a lot? Whose influence you had during those years?
See, my father.
Again, your father. Okay.
My father.
Any client also you had?
Yeah,
somebody
because he was a very simple man, dhoti clad, God fearing, and always encouraging me in my effort to be successful.
So, how did you get into the institute politics? I believe nowadays it is a little different than those days, but still it was tough. So, how did you get into that?
No, because you see, I was very, I used to be a speaker at many of our institute functions.
On tax?
On tax and sometimes even on other subjects.
Okay.
So, I was, let's say, liked by people who came to listen to me. Then somebody said, sir, why don't you stand for election? So I said, I don't know how to fight an election. I think a couple of friends said that, no, that is our responsibility.
Oh,
So I
that's
stood for election in 1970. And I got Mr. Cabra and myself, we both stood in that year.
oh, wow.
And he and I, both newcomers, got elected.
Okay. Cabra means BL Cabra.
BL Cabra.
Okay, very good. And you became president in the year 81-82.
Yeah.
And who were there, in the council those days? Your predecessor or?
There were many persons at the time when I became president. There was Mr. Malegam was there,
Oh, wow.
Mr. Narelwala was there. I mean, all stalwarts.
So that was an experience in itself to.
And I really got so much from my colleagues in the council that I said so. Actually, if you read my annual speech, I mentioned in detail how I am obliged to the other members of the council for constantly supporting me. But I'm what you might say, you might even call in simple language as a maverick. I am different from many others.
You are a little restless person, right? You used to be restless person. You would like to do things.
Yeah, that is one. But apart from that, looking at any issue in a different light. Don't look at it from the hackneyed point of view. So that kind of searchful mentality helped me.
Oh, that's brilliant. So, any good memories of your institute days when you were president and the council member?
Yeah, I
three
don't want to
terms.
say anything which really amounts to saying something about the council or the council's deliberations, etc. But my own experience as president, I'll just give you 2 or 3 examples. One example was that in our regional council, Western India, they had organized a conference at Aurangabad. And the chairman had asked one institute employee to help him. So he also was asked to come. So the hotel expenses were paid by the institute.
Okay.
And this man put up a claim. He said, I'm entitled to my TA. Although he had not incurred any expense. So he said, but the rules are there. So the chairman of the regional council at that time rejected his claim. So there was a big uproar, a staff union, etc. So I was at that time the president of the institute. So they all came in a big bunch, the institute's office, and they said, this is not fair. This is our rule by. So I asked them to, I said, whatever your stream, you please take it out. Don't keep anything for going out. Just give me as much blame as you want to, because I am in a dilemma. Because legally you might be right, but morally you are wrong.
You're right. Very true.
So I said, I have decided that your staff's demand for the TA, we will pay, but I will pay. Institute will not pay.
Wow, incredible. Wow.
And the staff union secretary started weeping. He said, "आप तो साफ देवता हो." This is a Punjabi.
Wow.
This is something which, but that is because I'm a person with what shall I say, a different outlook towards life's problems, life's answers.
So, Bansi bhai, those days during your time, you had Malegam Saab and many others, that kind of legends, in the institute. So, most people would go there with a selfless motive to serve the profession in the real sense, or they would also have the other motives of self-development and the other.
No,
other
at
aspects.
least I was in the council till 79, I think. No, 82.
82. Yeah.
But I missed one because my nomination form was rejected.
Okay.
One turn I missed in
Oh,
between.
okay.
So I found that we had a very good team in the council who could think like similarly, who could correct each other without feeling any ego or vanity. So Mr. Malegam, Mr. Narelwala, Mr. Damania, by accident all Parsis.
Right. So you had a very good 3 terms in the institute,
Yes, I
contributing
think
a lot to the
well,
profession.
I thought that my time was something which was very well spent. This 81 I was vice president, 81, 82 I was president.
So if you look at the institute's, personalities, so who influenced you a lot among the past presidents of your time? Whom you think that that person influenced you a lot?
No, I think basically I was inspired by G.P. Kapadia.
Your principal.
The first
And
3 years of the institute, he was the president of the
right,
institute,
right.
and because I had worked in his
So you worked very closely with him.
so for 3 years, so I wanted to follow. And his basic credo was be excellent in whatever you do. Don't accept work unless your terms are acceptable. Don't be greedy, but keep your dignity up.
That's brilliant. Bansi bhai, you have been in the practice for more than 60 years, and you have been a teacher, president of the institute. You had many students also while you were teaching. So, and I believe many of your students have done fantastically well. So, could you narrate some of these names so that, and
Yeah,
I
I can
believe
mention.
many
That's
of
what
them
I
from
want
our
to say,
profession.
that if I am not mentioning any chartered accountant's name, it is not because they were not up to my expectations, but
Today we are talking in the context of
yeah.
chartered
The
accountant. Yes.
first person who was my student was Ajit Gulabchand,
Wow.
who is a Hindustan Culture.
SCC, yes.
I caught him in the class.
Hmm.
He was drawing a picture. So
Of the bridges?
yeah, he was drawing a picture in his notebook.
Okay.
So I asked him. So he said, "I couldn't understand what you were talking about, sir." So I said, "Let me do something which I like." And another person was who later became film star, Vinod Khanna. So Vinod Khanna was a person.
Acha, you taught Vinod Khanna also.
Vinod Khanna, yes, he was in the commerce stream.
Oh, I see.
So I had he made he was talking and he was making face. So I became very angry and I asked him to leave the class. He went out. He was a tall person, Vinod Khanna.
Yeah.
So he went out. And then I completed my lecture, and then eventually I went to get into my car so that I can drive to my office. I found that all the 4 tires were flat.
Oh, somebody.
So I didn't know. Then I got someone from WIA, which is next door,
Right.
Sydenham College and
Right.
WIA, and we did that. And then I went to the office. But some years back, when Saryuben died, Vinod Khanna was married to Saryuben's daughter. Saryu Daftari, who was the president of Indian Merchant Chamber,
Okay.
Walchand Group.
So he was from a business family, Vinod Khanna? Vinod Khanna was from a business family?
Saryuben's daughter.
Oh, okay.
Vinod Khanna is married to Saryuben's daughter.
Okay, okay.
So Saryuben, there was a death in the family, and therefore I went there because I knew her very well. Then he was sitting there, Vinod Khanna. So then we talked about school and college and then life. And, we were at Chandanwadi crematorium. So he himself asked me. He said, "Sir, did you find out who was responsible for your?"
For your.
So I said, "I didn't find out, but now I know." he became very friendly.
Right. So beyond that, I think Mr. Deepak Parekh, Mr. K.K. Mistry,
David
and many
Piramal.
others.
Dilip Piramal,
Dilip Ramal. Oh,
Deepak Parekh,
wow.
K.K. Mistry.
Wow. So you yourself is an institution, and you have created institutions across
Yeah, I think it was a great thing because Sydenham College was the best college in the whole of
those days.
Asia.
Yes, you are right.
So we used to get the cream of
Students.
talent.
Yeah.
So to some extent, it was the college which made. But the other thing was that I was a very serious teacher, and I used to make my lectures also very interesting and light-hearted.
Wow. That's good. So, Bansi bhai, what do you think the success means in today's time?
I think success is something which is to be related to the field in which you are working. If you are working in a business, then your success is how much turnover goes up, how many employees perform better. These are the things. So,
Right.
if you are a chartered accountant, then your success is measured by how well you did your work, not how much did you do.
Oh, wonderful. Very
How well you did your work.
right.
And the fact that you are the subject matter of respect and not the other way around.
Right. So, when you say well, so it gives impression of the excellence, not the perfection.
No.
Right.
Excellence in, see, there is a very fine book which of course not available nowadays, but Professor A. Gardiner is an American on excellence.
Okay.
Is a book,
Okay.
Oxford University,
What is the title of the book?
on excellence.
On excellence. Okay.
Professor Gardiner.
Gardner. Okay.
And his point is, I mean, in a short sentence, can we be excellent and equal to? Or in our effort to be equal, are we sacrificing excellence?
Wow.
That was,
Brilliant. Yes.
I read that book and I translated it in my life.
Yeah, we have seen that, sir. That's great. Bansi bhai, during your times, early 60s, 70s, 80s, and today's time, the profession has changed a lot. If I say it's a 360 degree, it's not exaggeration. What do you think, of the today's time? Where do you see the profession compared to your times?
Yeah. This is something which we had anticipated,
Okay.
that as the popularity of our course or our profession grows, the numbers will grow. And as numbers will grow, the clamor for work will grow. And clamor for work would sometimes mean that people will use unprofessional means to get work. So, how to balance? So, we had a committee appointed, I was not president at that time, but and we said that this is how we can balance the two. But personally, and that is what the report also said, that it is always good to have a growing profession.
That's important.
It is never to bar entry.
Yeah. It has to be
Never to
dynamic.
restrict entry.
Yeah, you have to have dynamism.
You have to do that. And I said the greatest mistake which the government or the Britishers made was to limit the number of people who will pass IAS. Let the profession be open. Ours is the only profession in which there is complete openness.
Yeah, we don't have any bar on the number
And
of students.
fortunately, because I and Mr. Narelwala were on the review committee for two different committees, we made sure that that openness of the profession remained an openness for all.
Bansi bhai, during your time, you did not have competition because the audit was prerogative of the auditors, the accountants, and tax laws were incidental to the practice. But today, things have changed. The chartered accountant is not only now confined to the audit and tax, but then the complete
Absolutely.
business solution. So, and you need to compete with other sister professionals. like MBAs and many others, and the consulting firms and all. So I think the changes which are taking place in our profession, you think that these are required and
You see,
welcome
this is a
changes?
philosophical issue,
Yeah.
that when you have a profession and you train a person to be qualified for that profession, you are also holding out a promise that you will get work.
Fantastic.
It can't be both ways.
You're right. Very right.
So you have to provide work. So how
Right.
do you provide work? For that, one has to do a lot of public work. And in review committee, we also dealt with this issue. How do we maintain our outward profile so respected that any new field will not be denied to us? Of course, that didn't continue for long because there were bureaucratic pressures, and some of our other professionals did not like that we. I'll just give you one example. I was appointed by the government, Manmohan Singh ji's government, as a member of a committee for valuers.
Okay.
And the present finance minister of West Bengal was a secretary in company law. And they were trying to take the view that we should restrict. So, when I read some of the pages which were given to me by them, somebody had drafted it. So I immediately said that you give me the full report, draft report, and I would like to write a minute of dissent. The present finance minister of West Bengal was the chairman of that committee.
Oh, Mitra.
Mehta. So they were what to do. So I didn't wait for the reply, and I drafted my minute of dissent and sent it to the committee. Was dissolved by the government. So standing up for a principle still has lots of people who buy.
Right. So in the evolving time of our profession, it has evolved a lot. So do you think that there are limitation in our carrying, or the professional limitations which we all encounter on a regular basis? So do you think there's a mismatch?
There are two things. Our profession is nothing but a part of the society.
Very right.
So if the society is decaying, then we cannot miss our own share.
You are right. Very right.
So to some extent, the declining standards in the rest of the country and the rest of the society will also get permeated into our profession. But you can't crown, as Mr. Palkhiwala used to say, you can't crown mediocrity because there is so much of it around you.
Right, very right.
So similarly, the fact that it exists does not make us any less convinced that this is not to be done.
Very true. So we have to be more pragmatic in our approach.
Pragmatic in the sense that the way I look at it is ethics is something which is an absolute.
Very
Ethics not something which is relative to circumstances.
Oh, brilliant.
So my view is that, in fact, I am just giving you one example. The government had appointed me as an expert member for interviewing the candidates for Provident Fund Commissioners post. So all assistant Provident Fund Commissioners had applied, and so I didn't know what to ask, because I said that this is something which is not my subject. So I asked the Union Labour Secretary. So he said, look, this is because the government has a rule that Union Public Service Commission means that there must be an expert. And they said this is an accounting subject, not our expertise. So you have been included. So I said, but what do I do? I am not going to write their accounts, or I am not going to review what they are writing. He said, no. And he was a person from Goa, a very fine person, he was the Union Labour Secretary. So he told me, he said, look, just follow a simple rule. The major curse in provident fund departments is corruption. So anyone who wants to take a loan from his provident fund because of sickness or because of any permitted contingency, there is a cut. So you ask a question to everyone. What is the position? How many loans were sanctioned and how many loans were rejected or kept pending, etc. Then you form your own judgment. Who is the person who is not who doesn't like this corruption? Even the Union Labour Secretary. So I suggested someone from Northeast, Meghalaya.
Right.
Everybody, only one post.
So, Bansi bhai, what is your message to our young and budding members? They are in the process of setting up the practice or either going for the job. So, what is that guidance you would like to give?
Yeah, I think one is to get this dissatisfaction from our mind out.
But how do you do? You are part of a material society.
You have to, because if you wanted to make money, the day you start and the next year and the year thereafter, then as Mr. Gatalia used to say, all that you have to do is to print notes, forge notes. That is also a way of doing it. You get money. So I think everyone who comes to the profession has to accept a waiting period, ethics, and the fact that you will succeed, but you will succeed not immediately, but by working hard, establishing your name, pursuing work with some greater expertise. So it is a combination of things that is required to be done.
You are right.
But I can understand that the cost of education, the cost of person becoming CA has gone up. Because,
tremendously, yeah. And also surviving in a city like Mumbai is very, very difficult initially.
So, this is another thing on which I was not very successful, is to upgrade the rates at which our members charge.
Very true. It's yeah.
So we have issued from time to time the scales that you should do this, but I am told it is more on paper. You are not able to charge that.
Yeah, because of competition from
competition or whatever it is. But I personally believe that we have to earn dignity.
So that the dignity capital multiplied with the what you earn, that has to balance your desire and the satisfaction.
And the other thing is, of course, that there are various fields which are available in the early days of your practice, which can supplement your income.
Okay.
Do internal audits.
Okay.
Do something which is part-time. In my days, a couple of friends were also doing tuitions.
Right. But nowadays it's time of specialization, Bansi bhai. So people tend to go for specialization, and I think there they get better premium both in job as well as practice.
See, this is a perpetual dilemma for any part of the society.
Right.
That do you want to become an honorable member of the society, an honorable part of the society, or you want to be a wealthy part of the society? I am saying wealthy is a relative term.
Very right.
Therefore, I have always maintained that when you become a professional, whether you are a lawyer or an accountant or an insurance agent or whatever, you are accepting certain inherent limitations on what you can do and what you cannot do.
Great. Last question, Bansi bhai. What is your message to our very dear students?
We are a part of a great profession. Compared to any other profession in India, I think we have done very well. I look at it more from the point of view of not what we couldn't do, but what we have done. And I believe that we have done very well.
Very well, yes.
And if you compare the respect that we have earned from government and politicians and others.
And industry.
I was, just to give you an example, I was chairman of the International Federation of Accountants Education Committee. So Paris invited me to give a talk on professional ethics.
Wow.
I had to, so I said, I don't know French. They said, no, no, you speak in English. There will be simultaneous translation for. So I think ethics still has a great attraction for most people. But somehow or the other, I think this haste of making money
Yeah, that is.
comes in the way of also developing an ethical side of your
Right.
life.
So, during student life only one has to have understanding of ethics and the way we should be conducted.
Yeah, I think that is why when I was teaching CA students, because Mr. Gatalia was the chairman of regional council at that time. So he asked me, he said, why don't you take this revisional lecture CA in the evening at Sydenham College? So one of the subjects, though he said this subject, two subjects he asked me to take, government system of accounting, and another was professional ethics. And he added in his own sarcastic way, these are two subjects which are not liked by anyone.
It's wonderful and great, Bansi, by talking to you. And we have unfolded many chapters of your knowledge, understanding, and brilliance. And I'm sure that it would help
No,
we, the members.
I think I'm just an ordinary member of the profession. It is a different thing that I also became a president, but that is something which happens to some fortunate ones.
That is why, Bansi, why people say for you, Murti Lahan, Kirti Mahan.
Huh?
That is why people say for you, Murti Lahan. I mean, you look short, but Kirti Mahan, you have very high persona, very tall persona. Thank you, Bansi bhai. It's a pleasure talking to you, and I'm sure our audience would get enlightened with this. Thank you very much.